Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So for today's watercolor tutorial, it's all about studying. Studying. When you want to paint a subject matter, you really need to study. You need to study like the lights, the shadows hitting it, the subject itself, practice painting that particular thing. So a lot of people struggle to do this. They just go full on painting a picture, and I really think it's really important to paint vignettes or the actual object. And what is a vignette? It's like a little scene, right? Without having to do a full-on picture of maybe some trees or some rocks or flowers. And so we're going to do a little vignette of trees with some rocks and some shadows. I did a little more detailed one in my workshop in Bend, Oregon recently. We did 2 vignettes, and it really teaches you how to paint the trees and the rocks and the ground. So when you go to do the full-on picture, it's a lot easier. We also do practice skies, etc. And both vignettes today, we have another one with water ripples. People struggle with that one. There's a technique on how to get that nice soft ripple that I'll go over step by step here. So studying these things really helps you when you go to paint the full big picture, so you're not left in the dark like, oh, why did I do it wrong? Because if you keep practicing, right, and doing small little pictures, you'll be amazing when you do the bigger one. And we're doing wet on dry skies. I know people have a difficulty with that, but I keep breaking this down and again for you to make it a little bit more easier. Obviously, it's a lot easier to paint wet on dry skies if they're smaller. If they're bigger, I always generally tell people to do one on wet. It's a lot easier for people. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get painting some vignettes. Okay, so for this tutorial, we're going to do a couple of simple, quick vignettes. No drawing really required, just a couple of paintbrushes and some paint. I'm going to always end up starting to use my number 12 Neptune series. Short handle, by the way, people always wonder about that. It's a round, just 12 round, not long round, just round. There's been some issues with this, people getting confused about what brush I use, but it's the Neptune series 12 round. I'll take some ultramarine blue deep and some burnt sienna. Make a nice, lovely little color for a sky. We'll do the sky first. Just pick an area on this paper. I'm using Fabriano, bright white paper. There's 100% cotton, cold press. And the consistency is very wet, like tea. See, I mixed those 2 colors. And we're just going to take our paintbrush and swipe a couple of lines like this. Grab some water, swipe another line like that. Leave a little white in between. Grab some water itself. See, I'm swiping. I've just grabbed some water. Clean off my brush, grab water, kind of mix the 2. And that'd be a quick little sky. Go up here a little bit more, kind of mush that part. If you want to add a little bit more deeper blue, go ahead. But you got to kind of do it real quickly. I'm leaving a little white in between and a little bit blue down here. And that's kind of it, right? Let's do 2 at the same time. Do you think you can do 2 paintings at the same time? I think you can. So grab some more of that blue again. Wet on dry. I know people it's really difficult, but it's a swipe. 1 swipe, right? Put a lot of paint in your brush. Another swipe, leaving white in between. Maybe kind of connect them a little bit. Connect them over here and do another swipe. I just grab some water on my brush so it's really loose. Again, leaving white in between. And now clean up your brush, just water. I'm going to touch the top, touch a little between the 2. Kind of connect them a little bit and then hit the bottom again. See? 2 practice skies. If you want to add some more deeper color, you can add some more burnt sienna, make it a little bit grayer. So you can add some gray in there, gray tones. Change it up a little bit from the first one. Add some gray coming down here. It's up to you. A lot of people don't like to do the wet on dry, but it's always fun to practice. And you can add a little bit more blue up in here. Again, if you want. It's just a simple sky. Call it a day and let it dry. And notice how they're both kind of on an angle. That's the way I like to do it for my skies. And we're going to let these simple little vignette skies dry. And we're going to work on a little simple scene, whatever you want to call it. Or it could be a water scene. And maybe I should have left a little more space in between these 2, I guess. We might have to cover more with this one and less with this one. All right, let them dry. Now that they're dry, I'm going to mix up some greens. I use cadmium yellow deep for my greens with a little bit of Prussian blue That's a light green. You can use the same green, add more blue. It's a bluer green, so I take some burnt sienna or burnt umber and I tone it down so it comes more like an evergreen kind of green. If that makes sense for you. And you can manipulate it a little more, adding more blues or yellows, whatever you like. Right? You can use burnt sienna itself. I'm going to water this down a little bit for our ground. So maybe this is more like a, you're in like the Pacific Northwest or somewhere, I don't know, out west somewhere. And we're going to start with that. We're going to just take this watered down, again, using the same 12 brush, just putting a nice little line across. Could be like a beach lake area in the Pacific Northwest. See, I just did a simple line across. You can do the same thing here. If you want to do two and practice the trees, maybe you make it a coastal thing. So I'm going to wait on this one. And we're going to just do that simple line. We're going to let that dry. It's a lot of patience with something like this. We have to let that simple wash, see? Simple wash dry and come back to it. Now I've let that dry. We're going to think about our trees. And obviously the tree would be more of a brown tree trunk, right? You can kind of take that ultramarine blue and mix it in with this burnt sienna now and make like a nice deeper, maybe thicker paint. So here we go. As your guide for the tree, where it's going to go. I'm going to add a little more blue. So I would take my brush. This one's got a great tip if it's brand new. They're not expensive. They're about $12. They're not like a Skoda brushes are $150. So, it's always good to change out your brushes. If the tip doesn't look like this, you need to change it out and get a new one. And again, just do a simple line down. I'm giving you tools that I would use to help you with this. The pinky is the guide. Now you don't want to really put your fingers on the paper too much because you can have oils in the paper. Make sure your hands are clean because it will cause resist. But it's good to help you guide, right? So holding the brush like you would write with the pencil, like that. Put the pinky here and just make a nice line down just by moving the paintbrush like this. Having your pinky hold down, it's going to help you with that. So put another one over here. Right? And maybe another one back here. Just 3 lines just to guide you where the tree's going to go. And you can start going in here and grabbing your light green on your brush that we mixed up. Fill it all up in that belly. And again, so now we got the green trees. I'm just going to kind of tip-tap back and forth like in a zigzag. And evergreens are going to go from like a triangle shape. You don't want them going straight down. This happened to some people in my workshop. You want to go back and forth. See, I'm kind of tapping and just back and forth. Again, with this one up top, back and forth. You can push down. I want the light green first because we're going to go back in with some darks. And it's going to go fatter on the bottom. And see, I'm pushing down, back and forth. See, if I didn't do that, you go like this. You have the soldier trees people were doing. No. You got to get them wider on the bottom. Pull them out. If it's not looking like that. Leaving some spaces, obviously. Like that. Get 3 trees. We can add some more. We're going to get more depth, etc. If you start to add the water, the green and darker green now, it's just going to bleed and make a mess. So I don't recommend doing that. I like to do it where it's not wet and to go back over it when it's somewhat dry and then add the green. You can kind of do it when it's wet, but if it's thicker paint, it won't move as much. See, I've added some blue and some yellow. And then the burnt sienna, it's really thick paint. Just using a teeny bit of water and it won't move as much. It will kind of sit there. But then that's such a dark paint color. We want some nuance by adding some more water. So now it's a little bit lighter. I've added some more burnt sienna. See how dark that was? And it just, you see the pigment coming through and it won't be kind of pretty. And if it's lighter, it'd be better. So now see, that's why I don't put the paint in right now. It's just bleeding into the green and you don't even get the light green color anymore. I'm gonna wait till it dries. Meanwhile, we can do some fun stuff by adding a little bit more burnt sienna on the ground. So loosen some of this up again. Tap on my paper towel, get off the excess. And we can kind of put some, like, streaks across. Give it some variety of color tone there. right? You don't have to, but it's good to play around with adding some more color. It's looking a little too light. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker in some areas. And you can keep the light wherever you want to keep the light. Just a simple vignette here we're doing. If you wanted to add rocks, take some ultramarine blue deep and you mix it in and turn to gray. You can kind of put a little rock in here so it's a little bump, a little dashes, and like a little bump here. It's bleeding into the burnt sienna, which is fine. And you can do another one here. Kind of wiggle your brush. Boom, boom. A couple of rocks. Not too many, just a few. A lot of people get really stuck on rocks. I know it's a contention for some people. Get the paint a little bit thicker with the grays. Again, the blue and the burnt sienna. And it won't move as much. And use the darker color kind of on the bottom. And you can see more of the rock. See? Just tapping the bottom area and it's a little bit darker. Looks more like a rock. Zoom in so you can see. This part's a little bit lighter. The bottom is a little bit darker. It's still wet, so it's bleeding, and you can just do little taps for some smaller rocks. Some right out here, little taps. So you make a little line like this. Now a lot of this got a little too dark too soon. If that happens to you, take a, I don't know, another stiff brush. I have a Velvet Touch series. This is smaller, really tiny, number 4. And kind of lift some of the paint. See, I'm lifting and tapping back, and you've removed some of all that dark paint. Lift, got a little water on your brush, and you tap back on the paper towel, and you've got the highlight back in that rock. You see, these are all the little techniques I'm showing you, and these tiny little vignettes. It's really helpful to play with tiny little paintings to start to figure out what you need to do for bigger ones. See? And then you get the nuance of the rocks. Another thing you can do is also scrape with a credit card, and you can go back in and add a little color too if you took out too much. Look at that. Okay, so I'm testing. It's pretty much dry with my tree. And I'll go take that medium to dark green, and I can go back in and see. I'll tap in the color. Just moving it back and forth with this tip of this brush. It can even be really thick. You can add some yellow, burnt sienna, and the paint moves much less. But if you wanted a light color, you go dark too soon, you lose all that. So here I'm going in here. And my tree trunks are really skinny, so I'm going to finish that, fix that. I can go and use the same brush. Again, these two colors, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and various degrees of adding the blue makes it darker brown. So maybe make the tree trunk a little bit wider. Going in here and up. See that? Simple tree vignette. Now even my green watered out, that was light, so I'm going to take some thick yellow, mix it in with my greens that I have here. It's a light green, but it's thick paint. It's not moving much at all. And you can go back in and tap that lovely light green in here. Now we haven't added any branches yet. It's kind of a full tree. We can have it more of a branch type situation if you wanted to. But I'm doing kind of a fuller tree here. Just like that. And then with a smaller brush, maybe like an 8 long round or even a liner brush, which I love. Whatever liner brush you find. I have a Princeton number 4 Umbria. Someone said they don't make them. I don't know. That's an old one. So take some of your green paint on here and start to put a little bit of grasses. Mix all these little greens here. See? These are ways you can play with your paintbrushes, doing little tiny vignettes like this to figure out how to paint trees and rocks before you go full blown into a whole entire painting. This is kind of what I did in my workshop in Bend, Oregon. Things like this. So I'm just doing some simple grasses. Simple tree vignette. And depending on the day, if there's actual sun, maybe you move a highlight here on the side of the tree if the sun is hitting it on the left-hand side. Just lighten up that side a little bit. Same way we did the rocks. See, I'm lifting some of this paint. And we can add a shadow using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna again. You can use the number 12 brush, whatever brush you feel comfortable. I'll clean off my brush. I add more blue though. I like my shadows more blue. So here's more ultramarine blue in this mixture. And burnt sienna, just tapping a little bit of that burnt sienna. Right? And then we can play with putting in a shadow. If it's coming this way, well, the tree is going to go like this. And then we add like little lines like this. See? There's our little shadows. And the little tip tap for the tree branches. And you can add more shadows, maybe from the grasses or something. But that's how I would do this. And of course, it's going to be darker on the bottom of this rock here. That's the shadow of the tree. That's our first vignette, playing with trees and shadows. By the way, you can get more creative by adding in some more trees. I just have the 3, and you can add some trees with branches. And of course, then they'll require more shadows going out. So I'm adding a different type of tree back here, maybe some more. That just changes the whole look. It looks more like a forest, right? I did the basic trunks, and I'll use a liner brush for branches because it makes really great branches. See? And just kind of wiggle waggle out this way, that way, and then I'll add some greenery to it. And then you can do the shadow from this. And so your whole vignette is going to change even more so. Because I added some, I can go back into this, now that it's dry, add some, a little bit of the branches kind of peeking through of these evergreens. If we've lost them. Yeah, you'd go back with your brush, whatever brush you feel comfortable. Even I can even use long round, thick paint of the yellow, Prussian blue, little burnt sienna. And we can kind of tip tap, maybe a little more yellow. Some greens, a little thicker. I'm using it on its side like this. Zoom in. Side, this area. We're just kind of rolling and pushing down on the side very gently. And you create these wonderful little simple leaves. You can roll it and get some dry brush. And if you want to add some darker color, just get, again, the blue burnt sienna. And then you've added some darker tones to it. Back in here, just to give it some variety. Again, go back with the light. You want some different tones happening. So that's another tree that goes with that, right? If you want to really differentiate it, you can kind of get in between those little evergreens and add some deeper color of this darker green. See, now the negative space. Or vice versa. It's up to you. And then of course, well, we had shadows with those trees. We got to add shadows with these ones. And these will be different because you have the branches and the leaves. So you're going in like that and filling it in. Does that make sense? I hope so. And that's a simple, cute little vignette of trees. Right, and of course you could add more rocks back here. You can really go crazy adding more grasses, even taller grasses. I didn't have some brown grasses, but you can add some brown. Oop, I got my finger painted on that. Just all kinds of playing around with this. If you want to add wildflowers, go crazy. There's no end to it. Okay. Well, the next one, let's just play around with a little simple ocean scene. I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue, deep. Let's water this down. You can have cobalt, cerulean blue. This cobalt. here. Gonna wash this down. So the horizon line, maybe just go like this, right? Again, I'm gonna lift up my paper and then tilt it and just gonna put a nice clean light wash in first. That's the ocean. Look how quick that was, right? Just a simple light wash, and then we're gonna get a little bit deeper. As it dries, we'll add some more colors to it. Now we don't want to put it in now. You want to seep in a little bit. You want the paint to go in the paper. Maybe get a little bit thicker with your paint now. So I'm adding a more ultramarine blue. Like this. You can add a touch of burnt sienna if you want. Now we can do a little test. Water it down, tap it on a paper towel, and see how much it bleeds. You want it to kind of soak in a little bit and bleed out a little bit, but not much. So it's kind of like a wait and see. It still looks a little very shiny. So let's play. Let's see. Just a little line. Okay, it's not moving too much. So you can do like a little line, broken up, leaving space. Let's see if it doesn't bleed too much. Do bigger ones. See them going across. Now it might bleed into each other and then you won't even see the light color. You want to catch it at just the right moment. I know. It's still seeping into the paper. So I'm doing like another line here. Right? And as that seeps in, we're going to let that dry a little bit more. So you can see the nuances of the lines, right? Get a little bit darker with the paint. And we're letting this dry even more. And hopefully it doesn't bleed into that. See, it's kind of bled into some of the areas. We want to wait a little bit longer. We don't want it completely dry. We want it still a little damp. Let's try this again. A little bit darker. Maybe thicker paint. Less water. You can tap it on your paper towel. It's doing too much of this. We want less of that. So the paint should get a little bit thicker. Add a little bit of burnt sienna to it. Just line, space, another line. So it's still bleeding a little too much. You want it to dry a little bit more. And it won't bleed as much at all. Of course, the paint should be thicker too. And if it's not thick, if it's too wet too, you can tap on a paper towel. Let's see, let's do some smaller ones. There we go. It's getting there. See, some little dashes. You see how that light color, and now you can do a little bit bigger ones going towards the front. Fatter, pushing down. Go back over those ones. And they're smaller going towards the back. Little tiny ones. Now we want to get a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take off some of the paint. Tap it on my paper towel. And now we're going to get a little bit lighter going back into the horizon. And that's how you deal with the water, you see. A little bit darker. Let's add a little bit more color. The burnt sienna is going to make a deeper blue-gray. It's still kind of bleeding. Get a little bit darker even still. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, see how the water's kind of like way in the back? It's many layers of it, and you have to kind of wait a little bit. Have some patience. But it's a great outcome once you get it done. You can add a little bit of these dark ones, tinier strokes in here. But the big ones towards the front. And it looks like a wonderful wave. Kind of rippling through the water. Don't you think? Just a little practice vignettes. The ocean, the land with some trees, the simple sky. You know, from here, you can add a little seagull. I just do like little V's and make them gray. So I'll add some burnt sienna. make this a nice pretty gray, more blue. A little bit lighter. I can even use this 12, just make a little V and go in and show you. Little V, smaller, 1, 2, 3. There you go. So practice, practice, practice. So this is the little thing you got to try and practice with wet on wet, right? It's seeping in, you wait till it's drying, and then you add the lines. And then you get that cool effect. And same thing with the trees, playing around with this. Now I feel like maybe in the background of this, I would add in some more trees here. Maybe another evergreen. It's missing something to me. I can add the branches. So maybe I'll add like a smaller evergreen kind of like happening here. You play around with it and you see the composition, see if you like it. Maybe add a little more brown. Does it work for you? Does it look good? Are you happy with it? I'm adding a little deeper blue in here and burnt sienna. So it's a deeper color evergreen. Just like that. I felt like I filled that hole in there, right? Just giving you some ideas to play with. Maybe you could put a fence in there. I didn't even think about that, but it's kind of cool. Have like a little fence. I'm just mixing in some colors. Getting this gray brown tone, like a broken fence. Just like that. Think of all the things you could do with the composition. So I hope these little vignettes were fun and interesting for you. If you're just struggling with watercolor, beginning watercolor, try and do something small. Just capture like the trees themselves. Study the trees, study the ocean. Study simple things. The simple study, the small vignettes is really what's going to help you when you're doing a larger landscape. All right, study the shadows that everything creates that you see here in the tree, and all that good stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions in the comment section, please don't forget to hit the bell notification button and click all notifications so that you get to see my tutorials as soon as they come up. Because some people said they weren't seeing them, and that is why. And if you really like my content, please consider joining my Patreon. I have more exclusive, extensive tutorials on there that are not on YouTube. So, like I said, there was something similar to this in my workshop I had in Bend, Oregon, but that was much more extensive in the workshop, much more detailed than what's here. This is kind of like more remedial than that. And you get that kind of instruction on Patreon as well. So maybe consider joining that, and it helps support my channel here on YouTube, which I really appreciate. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.